Okay, so I have thought of a couple more things to discuss regarding the primal self. Um, there's always more, and so I'll record a couple more videos. Um, so For anyone who is unsure of what the primal self is, I am going to come back and record a video about what is the primal self, because you never know, people might come along and start seeing these videos and go, but what the heck is the primal self? So that's going to come next. First of all, I want to record this one. And I got to thinking this morning. I was talking with a friend who went through some early childhood traumas, and just rug myself up here, it's chilly. And while I was talking with him about it, it sort of occurred to me that when things happen in childhood, when you're very, very young, it's very difficult to resolve them fully, because you're only a kid, and you're sort of you've got to get on with sort of living life, and like there's not really structures to help you to cope with it. And generally when we were kids, the parents and the adults around us, the vast majority of them did not have the wherewithal to support us in deep traumas. They did not, in my generation, the whole idea of therapy or anything like that was, that didn't come in until, I was in my 30s or something. Like, it was, you had to be completely mad to go for, receive therapy. To actually look at psychology. So I'll talk about, my own childhood traumas, I suppose you call them. But so I was adopted. It was a forced adoption, bang at birth, and I did end up in a lovely family, but, I was basically forcibly removed at birth. So the mother and child, we were separated. I know my mother, I know now that my mother did not want that to happen. She was forced into the experience, with psychologically forced and physically forced into the experience. I'm just a baby in a womb, and the baby does sense what's going on the outside. So I was, during those formative times while in the womb, I was picking up on everything, on my mother's terror, the shame that was being forced onto her, the guilt, the stress she was under. Obviously I could sense everything else. So you can imagine, for an unborn child to be coming into a world with that sort of mindset. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be just adoption. There are so many different possible scenarios like this, that you arrive here and it's just like, where it's a completely daunting experience. So aside from that outer experience, I can see from a spiritual perspective how that experience was what I needed. I didn't necessarily make it happen, but I did choose to, I want to focus on, and I want to face this trauma psychology. I want to see my primal trauma, and I want to resolve this psychology once and for all. That's what I wanted from the spiritual realm, and I was very clear on that. So I needed experiences to trigger that when I was very, very young. So basically from a very young age, because, like I said, there was no way, I just could not address, the sense of separation, the grief, everything that, I went through, and also having to live with a whole bunch of lies. I think my parents, they were told lies, but, I knew everything that was being told to me about my adoption was lies. And nothing I could do about it, you know. I just had to live in a world where, you know, the world was lying to me, like, you know. But luckily, you know, it was a trustworthy family, so, you know, that was the saving grace in all of it. So, it activated, or I should say, the experience drove me to activate my primal self very, very early on. You know, I recall, you know, really, because my primal self had the belief that people can't be trusted. And, you know, the experience of being forcibly adopted, you know, my mother being forced into it, people can't be trusted, see? And, you know, I know that from, you know, the word go, that, you know, experience after experience showed me that, you know, a lot of people couldn't be trusted. I was very untrusting. I actually had a sister who was, you know, just pushed all of those buttons. Like, she was the closest in age to me, and, you know, she was actually quite deceptive, and, but, you know, love her to pieces, but yeah, couldn't trust her at all. You know, so it was sort of activating this primal self, which my primal self would, you know, just build up, you know, as a child, like, you know, just either went into escapism, incredible protection mode, like, you know, I'd just pull down this wall in front of myself, you know, like I'm a crab, cancer, like, you know, into the shell I go. Also run, you know, fight, flight, freeze, the whole lot of it, you know, that's, I was from a very young age very much activated into that. So, and it just patterned throughout my life until, you know, finally, you know, at the age of 57, am I? 57 or 58, something like that. Yeah, until this ripe old age, and finally I, like, that's it. I see it. It's done. I don't need this anymore. It's just a coping mechanism. So this video is just simply about to look at, you know, go back in your life, and if you're a spiritual person, I guarantee you that your life experiences, particularly the younger you were, have been there, you know, if they were difficult experiences, they've been there to help you get this primal self activated so that you can see it more clearly and resolve it once and for all. Because if you're a spiritual person, you have made a divine plan, and you have designed this life so that you would have experiences that trigger your unresolved psychology. So follow the rabbit down the hole and you'll find your answers. You know, you'll see it. Just look for the patterns. It's all there. Okay, see ya.